All right, political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng joins us now via video link as we continue to unpack the 2024 elections. We look at seat allocations to political parties and voter turnout. A very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. So a total of 400 seats in the National Assembly. What informs the number of seats allocated to each party?
Well, I think, what they look at is obviously, first of all, number of votes that each political party has received. And then the second thing that's looked at, because we are in a proportional representation system, is who then came as close to possible to the number that is like kind of the lowest number. And then they basically dish out those votes on the basis of that proportional representation so that the parliament can be as representative of diverse interests of South Africans and diverse voices as possible. There's also a consideration done around, political party members or even independent candidates coming from different provinces, such that there's a mix of people coming from the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, the Mpumalanga, Northern, Northwest, and so on, so that you have different people from different provinces, as well as just general members who represent kind of the national idea, as well as making sure that some of the smaller parties who, if they were strict about exact numbers, might not make it, can also make it if they got close enough to the numbers that were needed.
Now, some of the concerns as we look at the various, scenarios of coalitions is seeing a huge policy shift or changes. What's the impact of seats in the work of Parliament? As an example, the passing of policies, motions, and also representation.
So it has a huge impact, because if you have an overall majority, for example, you can just decide as a party that you're going to change the constitution and you do it. And so one of the things that's happening right now in terms of the coalition kind of discussions that are happening is that the ANC, the EFF, and the MK, the three of them together have an overwhelming majority, a 2/3 majority. If they came together, that would give them the ability to do any and everything that they want, including changing the constitution. So, for instance, if President Jacob Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma said he wants, a removal of the clause that says if you are previously convicted, you can't be a parliamentary member for the next 5 years. He could effectively argue that that's his stick, or that's his carrot, essentially. That's the thing he's willing to go into parliament with, and the ANC has to give him that. And if the ANC agrees to that, then that's what could happen. Same with if we go with the DA and an ANC coalition, what we may see is that the DA may say, well, ANC, your policy, for instance, when it comes to the National Student Fund, is that you are giving it as a grant. We want it to be a loan, and that is our condition. And the ANC, if they agree to this, they're going to change, they're going to change the policy, and then effectively say there will be no more NSFAS from next year. You will have to get a loan instead and have to pay it as soon as you get a job, or whatever the conditionalities that they give. Now that the ANC has 40% instead of the 57% that they have, they cannot make decisions on their own and know that those decisions are going to pass as long as everyone in the political party votes in the way that they're being directed. They're going to need other political parties to support them, and so much more lobbying is going to have to happen in Parliament for particularly the ANC as the party that received the 40% or the largest chunk of seats to be able to have what they want to happen. And this is why I believe that we're likely to see potentially a government of national unity instead of a coalition, because a government of national unity actually allows them to make use of the 40% that they have, allows them to still dominate because it's kind of proportional representation, and it also allows for the widest range of kind of engagement, the widest range of decision making, which it also covers them in the most important impact, which is that if they go with the DA, people who cannot stand the DA but voted for the ANC can come back and say, I will never give you my vote because I gave you my vote and you lent it to the one political party I did not want in my life. So I don't want you. And as you're seeing already on social media, people are calling a potential DA an ANC coalition Party 2.0. Same with if he goes with the MK and if they go with the MK and the EFF, that could also be its own disaster with people saying, I voted for the ANC precisely because I wanted a strong ANC and I didn't want an EFF and I didn't want an MK, and you've taken my vote and you've given it to these guys now with their policies, which I don't like, and so I will never vote for you. And so the safest option for them is a government of national unity, because whether they go with MK and EFF or they go with ANC, with the DA, they're going to be, out of favor with some voters, and we're going to see the kind of lobbying, I would call it, that South Africans are doing now by already naming the ANC-DA coalition potential Apartheid 2.0 before even seeing what's actually on the table should these two parties come together. Never mind that we don't know how long a coalition with the DA would last, because they have a history of falling out of coalitions within a year and sometimes even months of agreeing with people.
Asanda, there's so many of what you've said I want to unpack, but unfortunately we're running fast out of time, and I want to touch on the voter turnout. While we saw that, of course, the ANC has lost its 30-year-long parliamentary majority, essentially, just securing just 39.77% of the National Assembly vote. The party has somewhat attributed its numbers and losing power to low voter turnout. So just talk to us about, what the prospects are then in terms of what they're saying.
Well, there's two things. So the first thing is that I think we need to kind of admit that although the ANC has lost its parliamentary majority, people have still voted for ANC-esque policy or ideology, because the EFF is a baby of the ANC. It's a former Youth League president. The MK is a baby of the ANC. It's a former president of the ANC. And so somewhere in the foundation of these political parties is the ANC, which means the ANC actually has some hope potentially of coming back in 2019 or doing better in 2029, depending on how people decide. In terms of turnout, this is one of the lowest turnouts that we've seen. And part of it could be that people have become so apathetic that they really couldn't be bothered, or they're so angry with the ANC as a governing party that they wanted nothing to do with the election. But what's interesting, though, is that there seems to be an intergenerational conflict or rift where the older generation that traditionally would vote for the ANC just stepped away. They didn't come. But large numbers of young people who vote for the EFF and who were alive or essentially came to consciousness at the height of ANC corruption, and ironically at the height of former President Jacob Zuma's corrupt government, are now the ones who have voted for the EFF and are voting, to remove the ANC out of power. And it's going to be interesting how they respond when the ANC and the EFF, should the ANC and EFF decide to go into a coalition, because they might feel betrayed by the EFF, who they gave their vote to remove power from the ANC, if they then combine their power and allow the ANC to be able to continue to dominate.
All right, Asanda, thank you so much for your time and, of course, your analysis, political analyst there, Asanda Ngoasheng.